Welcome back to Skilled Nation, where we explored the trades powering the next generation of workers, creators, and builders. In this episode, we're stepping into the high-tech heart of modern industry with a behind-the-scenes look at Advanced Industrial Maintenance Technology, or AIMT. Now, this isn't your average trade. AIMT techs are the pros who keep massive systems moving, from robotics and automated manufacturing lines to hydraulics, pneumatics, and electrical controls. Think part mechanic, part electrician, part problem solver, all rolled into one. In this episode, we're joined by a leading expert, Kenneth Todd. He's the Director of Sustainable Energy Programs at TWS. Kenneth understands this career path inside and out. He's studied the systems, followed industry trends, and knows exactly what it takes to succeed in this field. You'll hear why the demand is skyrocketing, what kind of mindset and skills the job really requires, and how this path can lead to a stable, high-paying future. Hey, if you're into troubleshooting, tech, and working with both your hands and your brain, well, this is the episode for you. So let's get into it. Okay, let's welcome Kenneth. Thanks for being on Skilled Nation Podcast, Kenneth.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So this is a new career path that for me. I've not heard of it. So let's talk about your path and how you became an expert in this area. How'd you start out?
Yeah, honestly, that's a very large journey. It's taken me decades to get here, quite honestly, but I started in the military. So I joined the Air Force at 18, and I got into, we'll call it technology. So I was dealing with priority A weapons, nuclear weapons, but really what I specialized in was the electronics and then digital controls. So I started there. I really didn't think of it as a long-term career. I was looking for a pathway to get into college and maybe shore up some additional education post-military. And again, that pathway took many, many years because I really had no direction and I didn't have a lot of background information about the skilled trades. A lot of what you laid out in the opening is spot on. But what I will say is without direction, without guidance from instructors, teachers, elevated supervisors and roles, if they weren't there for you, it takes decades to learn the complexity of everything. But I've worked in hydraulics and pneumatics for like Parker Hannifin and their aerospace division. I've worked for multiple different energy companies as well, kind of supporting them in different ways. So it could be solar. I've worked in wind technology, working with some of the biggest companies out there on the planet. But more specifically, in the last 7 years, I've been developing training programs for whether it be for profit, nonprofit, or even business to business. Everyone out there is clamoring for upskilling of their employees or just people in general looking for something more elevated, something that they can call a career and change the projection and the outcome of their future and their family's future. So I've spent many decades doing that for my own family. And I think what probably sets me apart at this point is to understand that it doesn't need to take decades. With the right training and the right influence in your life, you can cut that down to just a few years. Our training programs are typically about 7 months to a year. So when you start thinking about that, you're coming out of the training process and getting into the industry and really changing everything, whether it's your finances or just understanding how the world works. So my pathway was very unconventional, but it worked for me so far. So it's been a great path.
Yeah, one foot in front of the other, right? Well, exactly. When you talk about this pathway that took decades, I mean, talk about crunching that down into a program that people can use to really take a shortcut, right, to getting into AIMT. And I guess that means to me, how interdisciplinary is it? What all goes into it? It seems like a real kind of interdisciplinary kind of a field.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in preparation of just having this conversation, I was struggling to come up with a way to really identify what is AIMT or IMT, what is its history, and how is it kind of driving America and even the globe today. And the one thing that I wrote down, and I never really got past it, and it almost looks like I started a laundry list and got distracted, but toilet paper. We'll just talk about toilet paper. 83 million rolls of toilet paper are made per day. It's one of the things that everybody in a household has to use, and we make a ton of it. But where does it come from? How does it get to us? So when you break that down, you got to start somewhere. You've got to start with materials that are recycled. You've got chemicals that are being added. You've got motors that are agitating fibers, and you've got motors and pumps and all sorts of complex machinery that's moving this raw material all over the factory floor, not the actual floor, but throughout the conveyance systems. And you've got along that way touch points that are mandatory. So you've got to ensure that the quality is there. You've got to ensure that the color is there to make it look right for toilet paper. You've got to have rollers, cutters. Everything is automated. Everything is under the control of some type of industrial application. So these technicians that we're talking about in industrial maintenance technology, you could really kind of spin that around and rephrase it as industrial technology maintenance. So these maintenance workers are out there in the field every day, ensuring that all of these motors, pumps, boilers, heating systems, cooling systems, all of them are integrated. So they all work as one large machine. And to your point, and my point of it taking sometimes decades, is if you look at the entire whole, it's a little daunting. It's a lot. It's very complex. And we're only getting into the manufacturing part. What about packaging? What about distribution? Making sure that items can get from point A to point B. They're all done with electrical motors. They're all done with some type of large industrial application that has many complex electrical and mechanical applications. These folks are immersed into it and working on them. But if you break them down into their smaller parts, the parts that are more manageable, things that you can really identify with, that's really what drives this machinery. And it's just wash, rinse, repeat across multiple industries, whether we're delivering toilet paper or we're delivering electrical power. So you follow the household goods and everything. You could look at anything that's around you right now. It doesn't matter where you're at, if you're at home or in the office or there in the studio. Look at one item and just ask yourself, how is it manufactured and how did it get there? And if you look at the large picture first, that can be daunting. So for our training, we break it down to the smaller parts, and that's what we can get into today.
Well, when we talk about wash, rinse, repeat, I'm not going to do that with my toilet paper.
Right.
I'm gonna buy it new every time. We're
Right.
talking with Kenneth Todd, Director of Sustainable Energy Programs at TWS, and we're talking about a difficult career path to really get your head around, because it's, in a sense, the touch points in your life day to day with consumer goods, as you said, Kenneth, is everywhere. It's, you open up your pantry, you'll see it. You open up your garage, you'll see it. It's anywhere in your household, you'll see it. So it's a crucial industry. But I mean, I don't even know how to begin. Like, is there something you could say that is what the day-to-day looks like, or is it going to be different for everyone?
That's the beauty of this job and why so many people really love this industry. Once they get into it, they realize that every hour is something different. It's not just every day or every week. We kind of alternate what makes up our job. It's every single hour you could be called to do something else. And the fun part is when it's needed now, meaning when an industrial maintenance technician is needed, they're needed at that exact moment, not to call somebody in, not to wait for an expert. we need troubleshooting, we need diagnosis, and we need action now. And the reason for that is if you break down the industry, any main industry or major industry that's producing something or moving goods around the US, a downtime can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $55,000 per hour. So when maintenance technicians are needed, they're needed right away. And you just never know. You really do not ever know when you clock in what you're going to be working on for the day. And it can be electrical, mechanical, it can be more scientific and theory based, it can be programming, it could be something that you just didn't consider when you clocked in. But the beauty of it is, you and the team, you all get to collaborate, work together. And at the end of the day, when everything's ticking and everything's working right, it just feels good. And in the opening, I also heard, this magic almost. We're not really sure what it is. And I think we've all heard the term horse whisperer. And that's exactly what it is what we do in the maintenance field is we become machine whisperers. So we hear things, we see things, we smell things, we use all of our senses to get immersed into the work. And you use your intuition along with training and background and information that you've taken in already. You keep data logs and trending data of all the information that you know about your facility. So when it does break down, you're there. But more importantly, I think one thing that people don't understand is the behind the scenes piece. So operators that typically run these machines on a day-to-day work on these, they don't work on the machines, but they work on the product, the final product. How do we get it out the door and how do we keep it moving? Industrial maintenance technicians really think about, well, how do we keep it moving tomorrow and the next day and the next day and never have that breakdown that is so costly. So they're changing filters, changing lubricants, changing different things that need to be changed out because there's a significant vibration or efficiency loss. So we're really more well-rounded than just something broke, let's fix it. A lot of times it's let's just keep it running. So far into the future, we're successful.
But Kenneth, do you find like with the people you train in your program, does it attract a certain kind of brain? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like it sounds like every day can be so different that would attract a certain type that might say, not that there's not a lot of skill and knowledge in troubleshooting and say HVAC, but the scope of what you're doing is going to be somewhat similar day to day, week to week. Do you like people who, do you think you attract people who like novelty or like the unexpected? Is it a mindset and a type?
I would say there is a bit of a type, although what I've witnessed is a lot of people don't really know their type in terms of that career path or the job that they're looking for next.
Oh,
And
okay.
And I would say once they get there, even those that aren't passionate about mechanics or passionate about electrical applications or even control systems or even programming, people get into these jobs because they're looking to elevate where they're at now. They want to upskill themselves. They want to stack more credentials. I look at all these disciplines as kind of interrelated, and that's where the hard part comes in to kind of parse this out to say who is it and what do they like, because an HVAC technician can be an industrial maintenance technician.
Okay.
In the industrial world, we have large chillers, boilers, all sorts of work that operate very similarly to residential or commercial applications. When I think of a welder, that can also be a stackable credential that an industrial maintenance technician can have. So I look at these as kind of a skill set that throughout your career, you can stack those credentials and become more and more useful and desired and needed out in the workforce. So when I think about their mindset, it's people that want to make a difference, people that want to impact the global business. They want to be sustainable about the way they use energy. They want to get involved in their communities, but they also want to change the trajectory of their own lives.
Well, Kenneth, you're talking about sustainable energy. How does that fit into these systems overall? And is that a new point of emphasis or a growing point of emphasis?
It absolutely is a growing point of emphasis, directly because the amount of energy that we need in the industries is growing. It's not scaling back. We need more and more power. Think AI, as AI starts to proliferate the landscape of these industrial complexes, what you're seeing is a ton of power being used, computing power, centralized power for all the applications that work off of AI. It's a big drain. Now, in the efficiency piece or the sustainable piece, it's not always just about adding renewables like solar and wind. It's also about scaling back the amount of power we use. And the way that you do that in our industry is to make things more efficient, much more well lubricated, things that maybe move a shorter distance versus a longer distance. We're always calculating how can we make this more efficient and use less power or free up available power for other applications. And these manufacturing plants and distribution plants, they're all getting so big that they build out in phases. So they'll have a phase one that might be hundreds of thousands of square feet of manufacturing space, and then they'll have a phase two that's equally as big, and 4 and 5 and so on. So these spaces use a tremendous amount of power, and we have to start thinking of sustainably. Yes, we're going to add additional power to the grid, but we'll also have to use less power in other applications.
Well, you know about those power allocations. We're talking to Kenneth Todd, Director of Sustainable Energy Programs at TWS. And this is such an all-encompassing career. It feels both familiar because you said the touch points in our lives are everywhere we look. But it also feels like there could be some real surprising applications. What might be a surprising piece of tech that somebody might encounter, or a surprising process that somebody might encounter if they pursue this career path?
Yeah, it's very exciting, and it's also a little bit scary. And I'll tell you, when you start thinking about the way these industries are modeling themselves and using AI, they're also using robotics and programming of robotics. So you've got, I'll just name a facility, a distribution facility. I won't use the company name, but very reputable. Almost everyone shops either in their brick and mortar store or gets something online from them. So we're talking about big distribution. Imagine your toilet paper and all the other necessary goods that are coming into their distribution centers. At this point, in the most advanced level, they're not being touched. The product is not being touched by humans. So they get offloaded from the truck, and robotic arms can dismantle a pallet, let's say, of multiple goods and stack little robots that almost look like tiny little trucks, something that you'd see maybe in Star Wars or Battlestar Galactica, where you've got these little robots running all over the ship. Well, these little robots are reality now, and they're taking product and storing it in cells. And there's an AI algorithm that knows exactly what the inventory is in each of these cells and where that intended product is going, ultimately to a store floor or to a consumer directly. So these robots will split the pallet. They'll put everything up where it needs to go, and then they'll also grab it later on the back end when it's defined where that item is going, and they'll get that ready for packaging. There's automatic palletizers that can stack with 60% more density than what a human can stack. So taller, more robust types of stacking on pallets and wrapping that up and then shipping that off. And oh yeah, AI is smart enough to say, hey, toilet paper exists in aisle 7. So all the items in aisle 7 will be packed on this pallet. And nobody's intervening in that process except for to say there are industrial maintenance technicians that are in the role of ensuring that all of that works as intended. So it does take a very robust maintenance staff to keep everything running. But when you think about the way these things operate, it's almost without human intervention, or at least it seems like magic at that point.
And Kenneth, this seems like it's part of a broader discussion where people are saying, oh, jobs are being replaced, by robots. Because, what you described, there used to be somebody operating a forklift moving those pallets, or somebody, with a hand cart, somebody doing the sorting, and now we're having robots do that. But it seems like the employment has just shifted to supporting those new systems, supporting the AI, supporting the robotics, supporting the robotic arms and machines, and they need people who have the skills to do that. And that's what you're imparting to people through your program, correct?
Absolutely. We do that every day, in the most consistent way that we can to keep pace with the technology that's moving every day. And it's not just us. We do get asked by large employers. We have a few of them at Stratitech that need additional training or upskilling of their own employees. So they'll take cashiers or those forklift drivers or greeters or anybody that raises their hand and says, yes, I want to do something exciting and new. I'll go through the training programs. We build training programs for them as well. And that allows us to kind of get into these facilities and see what the lead losses are, what things are breaking down the most, and how can we support the training to ensure that they have technicians that can readily go out and fix what's broken or keep things working, as I've stated. But that's business to business for us. In the classroom, the more traditional learner, we break these complex items down that we see every day out in the field, and we make it easier for them to digest and easier for them to get into, and absolutely they're needed by the thousands. So as fast as we can build out training programs and labs and get them prepared for next, it just seems like we're always just a little bit behind. There's not the scale of this is growing so fast and so immense with baby boomers leaving. You've got additional countries wanting to invest here in America. We've got just the upward scale of all of our products and being shipped direct to the customer. It's a constant flow, and we need more and more industrial maintenance technicians every day. And although we're there to provide those solutions, it feels like it's always an uphill battle.
Well, you said something there that really sparked my interest is when you're talking about demand, you can talk about wages, right? Because when there's a lot of demand and there's not enough supply, generally that means you're getting paid pretty well. So when people are hearing this and hearing about a training program, what can they expect in terms of starting pay? And then what are the opportunities as they grow in that career?
Yeah. Tons of opportunities. The opportunities do seem endless, and that's why it's hard to talk about this sometimes, because you could just keep going on and on until people get glossy-eyed and they're like, okay, I get it, there's a lot of jobs. When you look at pay, the pay scale can be quite vast, but I would say if we honed in on an average, starting out, you're probably looking at somewhere between $24 and $28 an hour. But what I want to throw out there is, with the additional need of more and more skilled trades workers, and not having the robust backbench and enough people to do the job, there's a lot of overtime involved. Time and a half, double time. Sometimes we've seen even double time and a half, and that, when you really break it down, starts becoming almost more than your base wage. So 24 to 28 is a great place to start in this trade, especially if you're getting 15 to 20 hours a week, or even sometimes more overtime. It becomes, over $100,000 a year quite quickly. I would say within 3 to 5 years, you should have multi-skills. So more than just maybe electrical troubleshooting. Now you're getting into more mechanical or automation or robotics. So you start building that resume, stacking more credentials like electrical circuitry or control systems, and you start getting more and more aware of how everything works. You start breaking into that $30, $35 an hour wage mark, again, with a lot of overtime. And then I would say ultimately what you're looking to do within 5 to 10 years is to start getting into leadership or training or some type of quality assurance, and being more of a presence on the shop floor to show that you're there to support all functions and not just one small function. So multi-skilled is way to go by about 5 to 10 years. And they're looking at upwards of $50 an hour for a lot of those roles. So it is quite lucrative.
So you're talking about a career path that's available to people. They can really grow, and they can grow as much as they want to, depending on how many certifications they're willing to stack.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to go back to something that fascinated me, that you have employers right now going to you and asking you to reverse engineer training programs for their people and for their processes. So that sounds like an opportunity for immediate placements. How hard is it to get a job once you have gone through your program?
I never want to make any guarantees for any individual, but I'll say that most individuals have employment within 30 days of completing the training process after their 7-month training. But what we do typically is bring in employers, not just to talk about program advisory level decisions, like what stays in the curriculum, what goes, what's coming up next. We're also making inroads with these employers to say, well, how many folks do you need? And if we can get donations or information from your location, maybe we can streamline the process of your training locally to look more like our training here within our organization. So we use those PAC members not just to drive our own processes, but also to help our students get placement. So many of them do have jobs before they actually leave the training. We just ask that the employers allow us to finish out the training and finish what the students started, so they can get as well-rounded as possible. But many do get jobs prior to finishing.
You can't do better than that. I know you're not making promises, but that sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into some quick hitting questions. What's more satisfying, fixing a jammed robot arm or diagnosing a failing PLC, and why?
Gosh, for me, it's probably going to be diagnosing PLC. I am more electrically driven and process driven. But there's something satisfying about turning a wrench and getting dirty. I do like getting dirty. I can't tell you why. It just happens. I like them probably equally, but I have to lean towards PLC just because of the electrical piece.
Average day, you using what are you using more, your hands or the gray matter, or both?
Wow. Well, these days, probably more gray matter, way more brain than brawn at this point in my career. My fingers don't probably work the way they used to when I was in my 20s, but I do use a lot of brain power, so I'm going to have to go with the brain. Work harder, not smarter.
And have you ever had to tackle a job that at the outset you had no idea how you were going to fix it, and you kind of had to just figure it out as you go to tackle it?
Fake it till you make it. Has that ever happened? Absolutely. One thing that I'll say though is I've always been safety minded. So
Oh yeah.
there are certain things that you can get away with in terms of fake it till you make it. But there are certainly things that are hazardous in the industry that you wouldn't want to do that. But certainly there has been, as everything gets upskilled, everything continues to be what seems like more complex is actually easier and easier on the human body. So the more we think with our minds and the more that we interact with AI and all these control technologies and automation, the better. I do trend to be more that.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about the skilled trades, every job site I've ever been on, it starts with safety. And I'm sure it starts in your program too. It starts with safety. If AIMT had a nickname, what would it be and why?
I was thinking about that. We talked about machine whisperer, maybe a technology ninja or something like that. But I do like machine whisperer. It hits the crossroads of everything that we do. We really understand the machinery. We really break it down to its most non-complex level and then build it back up from there. So I would say machine whisperers the number one. That's my favorite.
I like that one too. And I like the way you described it up at the top, where it's like you're on that floor, especially if you're, lucky enough to be on a single location for a long time. Just the hum of a machine changing frequency can tell you so much.
Absolutely.
That anyone else on that floor is, well, it's just a hum, that being that attuned to a location, how satisfying must that be?
It's like being at home. I mean, you as soon as you're there, you could be blindfolded and know you're there just from the sound. You could put earplugs in, you're where you're at, you're at your job when you can smell it. It's all it's so familiar it almost feels like home. And I'm not saying that home is minimized in any way, but it does feel satisfying to be in a place like that where you just know, you can tell something's in the air, something's not quite right.
Well, as we wrap up here, this has been such a complex, kind of complicated, all over the place conversation, because the career can take you in so many different directions. So if you were to generalize it in terms of the appeal of this career path to somebody listening, what's the pitch? What would you say that is going to make this a life that people are really going to get a lot out of, personally, financially, and just in terms of that career satisfaction?
Absolutely. I'll start with people. The people in the industry are amazing. They're very collaborative. Everybody wants to work on the team together. There's very few times where I've encountered people that are like, I'm going to fix this, or I'm going to be the savior. It's more of a, let's get this done. Let's get this together. Do you need any help? There's a lot of people there that are always looking to support you in any way that they can. I would say the people are tremendous. In the skilled trades, I think IMT is probably one of the best in terms of collaboration versus individual output. I would also say the wages, it can change your life. If you're used to working the 9 to 5 or even unconventional jobs and barely making ends meet, this is one way to get ahead, to get beyond just living paycheck to paycheck, but also thinking about the future of your family as that grows. It's literally anywhere in the US, everywhere, every city, there's a place that you can find work. And find good work that you can retire from and feel good about. And then just I would say in closing, the pitch would be the equipment is really, really good out there. These days, the equipment can almost tell you itself what's going wrong. And in our training, it's really about being able to listen the correct way to the machinery and breaking it down from something that's very complex to something that's almost super simple. And it can put a smile on your face when you can walk in, fix something relatively easy, and everybody's looking at you like, how did you do that? And again, it comes back to that kind of voodoo magic, that pixie fairy dust whispering to the machinery. But it's just a great feeling at the end of the day to be able to work in this industry.
All right, that's a wrap on episode 6 of Skilled Nation. Huge thanks to Kenneth for breaking down what AIMT is really about and showing us how this high-tech, hands-on career keeps the modern world running behind the scenes, from robotics and PLCs to hydraulics and electrical systems. We saw how AIMT pros are part technician, part problem solver, and 100% essential to keeping big industries moving. The best part, it's a career path built for the future with serious earning potential and skills that are always in demand. It's a way of life and a badge of honor. If you're ready to combine your brain and your hands, and you want a career that's anything but routine, AIMT, well, it might just be the path you didn't know you were looking for. So give us a review, subscribe, and like. And if you want to learn more, head to tws.edu or rsi.edu to explore training programs, financial aid, and how to get started. All right, next week, electricians today aren't just wiring houses, they're building the future, from EV chargers to solar energy systems to smart homes. The trade is evolving faster than ever. Discover how electrical skills translate into future-proof, high-demand careers, and why this trade might be the smartest move you can make right now. Until then, again, leave us a review, give us a like, and subscribe. And of course, keep learning. This is Skilled Nation.